All right. Welcome to the Experience Oldsmar with the Mayor Podcast. I'm your host, Mayor Dan Saracki, broadcasting live from the top of the bay in downtown Oldsmar. Today, I have a special guest with over 27 years of public service. My guest today is Florida Senator Ed Hooper. Thank you for being here, Senator.
Thank you, Mayor. It's always a pleasure to be in Oldsmar and a double pleasure to be here with you today.
You've done so much for the community. I am honored and thankful that you're here. And we are going to have talk about a couple cool things today. What do you think?
I'm ready. Let's go.
I understand you moved to Florida in 1972. In 1972, I was in fifth grade, and I lived over in Vero Beach across the state. What was the first city you moved in?
I moved to Clearwater.
What brought you to Pinellas County?
Dan, I was a firefighter in North Carolina, and the opportunity for progressing in that career was really not there. Small town. So I came to Clearwater and applied for a job and got hired. And I moved here and went to work immediately the second day I was here.
Unbelievable. So when I was in Vero Beach, there was absolutely nothing there. Route 60 came in, and that was it. How was it like here in Clearwater?
In Clearwater, it was a community about a third of the size it is today, close to 50,000. There was no Clearwater Mall. There was no Countryside. When you got to US 19 and State Road 60, there was one little traffic light, and there was nothing between you and the city of Tampa.
Have you ever traveled up to Oldsmar during that time? Was there anything here?
You traveled through Oldsmar because there really wasn't what we know as Oldsmar today. Was not here.
Interesting. Very interesting. So some people will not know this, but you are a retired firefighter, correct?
I am. 28 years total service.
And what city did you work for here in Pinellas County?
Clearwater. My whole career was in Clearwater. 24 years, and I did 4 years in a small community called Statesville in North Carolina.
Well, thank you for your service. So important to all of us in the community. What rank did you retire under?
I retired as a lieutenant, which in the most departments is equivalent to a captain. You were in charge of a station, one particular shift, and you were with your family 24 hours at a time, your firefighter family, which meant you spent more time with your firefighter family than probably your real family. But it's really a close-knit group of people, and it was a great career.
Very interesting. So what type of work, after you retired, led you to consider the political arena?
I got involved a little bit politically while I was still a firefighter. Mayor, I'll admit I didn't pay attention to anything that was going on in the political world for too many years. And I started noticing, especially at the local government level, people were making decisions that impacted me, my pay, my equipment, the availability to make sure we kept not only our citizens safe, but us safe. So I started working in political campaigns for candidates that I thought would be more receptive to understanding the real problems. And we put up signs, we walked door to door, and that evolved into state legislative races and county commission races, and even did a lot of work for back then Congressman Mike Bilirakis in his campaign. So I got bitten by the bug doing that.
Very interesting. So in 1996, that was the year you were elected to county commissioner. That was the year I moved to Oldsmar. So can you describe what it was?
That was a city commission.
Or a city commission, right. Yeah. So can you describe what it was like to run that first campaign?
It was, I never done that before, and you have done that. You've run campaigns. You know, when you're the candidate, your goal is to make sure those signs are straight and level, and that people can see your name. And, you know, on Saturday morning when you're walking door to door, you want to make sure that somebody shows up to help you. So there's a lot. Running a small campaign like that is probably more stressful than running a big campaign because it's all on you.
It absolutely is a lot of work. I understand it completely.
Yep.
Trust me.
Yep, I know you do.
So you then, after all that, you decided to serve in the House of Representatives from 2006 to 2014. Which district did you represent?
It started out as District 50. There's 120 seats in the Florida House. and mine was District 50. And then every 10 years when we do redistricting, those numbers may change, and mine changed from 50 to 67. And there's a process how that occurs, and we don't have time to explain it. So half of my time was in District 50, and the latter part of my time in the House was District 67.
Well, we just did that redistricting, last year. So that, for me, that was the first time I ever witnessed something like that. So I understand it's a little complicated, but interesting. So what was, and as a representative, House representative, what was your top priority at that time?
Mayor, we're in Oldsmar. The obviously top priority was that Olympic BMX track.
Absolutely.
There was no other project that even worthy of discussion.
Yeah, thank you for all your hard work on that. You were involved in the grant appropriation for that and getting that built. That is truly a success story for the city of Oldsmar. Thank you, Senator, for that.
It's still a great attraction to the Tampa Bay area, but everybody that comes to do that, they have to come to Oldsmar.
Exactly, from all over the world, too.
All over the world.
And another quick note is, when we do have events, you do show up, and we do appreciate that very much to show your support for the city of Oldsmar. So then you decide to move on to the state as a senator. Yep. What made you decide to run for that?
Well, I knew the seat was going to be open. My wife keeps asking me what part of retirement don't I quite understand. And I tell her I don't think I understand any of it. But I still felt like, as you know, that the only reason you should run for office is really you feel like you really want to make a difference in your community, your county, or your state. And there were still some things that I thought I could make a difference in. And I found out real quick that a Senate seat is 3 times the size of a state representative seat. It's 550,000 constituents. So, but we did it early, and we did it the right way. And I will tell you that it's much better being in the Senate than it is the House. You're one of 40 and not one of 120.
Yeah, I've been to both committee meetings. I sit up in the rafters up there, and I watch you guys at work, and I agree. I think the Senate is a little more organized. How's that? Is that a good word?
I think so.
Okay, you serve District 21, which includes Pinellas and Pasco counties. How many miles does that district cover?
I don't know I've never tracked the mileage. I can tell you it goes from the city of Clearwater.
Yeah.
And it goes from the Gulf of Mexico to Tampa Bay, and all of Pinellas County to the county line. Then in Pasco County, it goes from the county line to Hudson and over to the Suncoast Parkway. So it's a big area.
And you're more up north now, Pinellas, because when the redistricting happened, your territory went more to Pasco, correct?
My Pasco area grew as opposed to any of my Pinellas area.
The Senate meets during specific times in the year in Tallahassee, yet you serve residents year-round. Let's explain that a little bit.
Well, each of us, even though we're in Tallahassee, all are part of 5 months out of the year. Year-round, we have to maintain a district office in our district for constituent services, for inquiries, for, if we have a storm, then we're part of the point people for helping communities get back on their feet. So in Palm Harbor, and I would say it's exactly about 1/8 of a mile from the Oldsmar city limits on Tampa Road at the Woodland Shopping Center, we have a year-round office there that's open Monday through Friday with the exception of holidays.
So during the last hurricane we had, you served the residents. You also served the businesses. What's some of the initiatives you provide assistance for with the businesses?
Usually it's connecting them with the state agencies that may be able to reach out, whether it's the Department of Emergency Management or the Department of Law Enforcement, the business and professional regulations for people whose businesses may be damaged or destroyed, to make sure that they don't lose their license, they're not punished because they can't get their sales tax report in on time. Just making sure that the least impact that's humanly possible to these businesses occurs instead of a whole bunch of red tape that's just not necessary.
I really do appreciate you explaining that, because me as a mayor, working with the local community. I deal with all different kinds of items, and where you're explaining bigger stuff, which is countywide to countywide. So thank you. Since being elected to the state Senate, what bills have you initiated?
We don't have. If I had to name them, I could. I usually do about 24 bills each session, and I'll be going into my sixth session starting very soon. So I file a lot of bills, and I will admit that I'm not. Policy is not my favorite arena. I like the appropriations process much better. Those don't count as a file bill, but so we do about 24 different bills every year, and I would have to say some of the highlights of those are I've been very instrumental in keeping Visit Florida alive and well as a state agency that does go out to the whole world, not the United States. Mayor, last year the state of Florida had 137 million out-of-state visitors come to see what we have, in addition to all of us that go visit attractions and areas inside the state of Florida. That number doesn't reflect that. So Visit Florida, to me, is a big deal. I'm proud to have spent a lot of time and energy making sure that Moffitt Cancer Center is funded appropriately. You know, they're building a big new campus in Pasco County that is going to be a centerpiece of every service that they can possibly offer, in addition to restaurants for families of patients, hotel rooms for if you want to stay there. It's going to be a campus that's going to put Moffitt Cancer Center on a level with MD Anderson in Houston. So we're going to be proud of that for the Tampa Bay area. So I've spent a lot of time making sure that Moffitt is treated in a fair way to make sure they get what they need.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Now, what about firefighters? Didn't you do some bills for the firefighters?
Maybe every year. No, it's I'm a big proponent of public safety, not only firefighters,
Absolutely.
but our law enforcement community. And you know, public safety to me is not just fire and police. Public safety is having a water system that's clean and available. It's making sure that the sanitation is not piling up on the sidewalk. All of those things are part of public safety, but there is a soft spot in my heart for those public safety officers, the law enforcement and firefighters that go out every day and do their job. Especially this week as we're taping this, yesterday was 9/11, and just watching the History Channel and seeing, you know, would you run into a burning 110-story building that's may or may not collapse? And I asked myself that question. I used to, but I don't know that I would anymore. With age, hopefully wisdom does come along. But we used to have a saying in the fire service, if the rats and roaches are running out of the building, we're running in. Yep. And so it's a commitment, and it's something that I want to make sure that those guys put their life on the line every day, and if there's something I can do to pass a bill to make sure that their health and safety, something as simple as making sure they have cancer coverage,
right,
then that's what I try to do that every session.
Thank you so much for sharing that, because yesterday was a very, for me, surreal.
Yep.
You know, watching some of those videos and going back in time, just horrific. But thank you for all you do, because I really respect the City of Oldsmar Fire Department. All right. So last thing before I go to the next question, I want to just bring something up. When I first got elected in 2015, and I never been to Tallahassee before, I'll never forget, you invited me into your office, and you have always opened your door and welcomed the City of Oldsmar, and you've always listened to me, and you've always heard what I had to say, and we've been working together. Before I go on, I just want to say thank you for that. It means a lot to me.
No, and Mayor, that's our job, and especially, you know how that drive is from here to Tallahassee.
Yeah.
It's not short, and if one of my constituents makes the effort to come to Tallahassee, something is important to them. And I'm a believer that if the governor's in your office and one of your constituents shows up, the governor can find another time to come in, that your constituents are who you're there. That's who you're there to speak on behalf of. So I make sure that we make time for our constituents to get into our office. If you want to sit in my chair, you can sit in my chair. I don't care, but it's that will never change. You'll always be welcomed.
Thank you for that. All right, committee assignments. You do quite a few there. What's your favorite?
My favorite is, and I asked for it specifically as my number one priority. It's called the Appropriations Committee on Transportation, Economic Development, and Tourism. And it's kind of just what it sounds like. We're responsible for all the roads, bridges, seaports, airports in the state of Florida that are state roads or federal roads. We make sure the railroads have what they need. We keep our seaports improved and up to date. It also means that you are doing a lot of the economic development programs, whether that's, as I mentioned earlier, Visit Florida, our Department of Economic Opportunity, which is now the Department of Commerce. All of those are part of that, and all the tourism-related things, in addition to, Mayor, library funding, historical structure funding, arts and culture funding throughout the whole state. It's an opportunity to make sure that, take your city, for instance. We're sitting in what used to probably be a historic building, and it could have just as easily been torn down. And we lose our history when we do that. So it's also a committee where a lot of the members make funding requests for important things in their district, in their community, whether it's a street that's in bad repair, a local street. So all of the members come to see the Transportation Appropriations Guy to put in a good word for their pet projects.
So you become a senator, and now you're the chair of this committee. How does that happen? How did you become chair?
In the House, I chaired the same committee in the House, but in the House there's about 25 committees, but there's like 85 members of the majority party. So to be a committee chair in the House, you're going to have to put in 4 to 6 years of time to be considered to be a chairman. In the Senate, there's 20-some members of the majority party and about 25 committees. So on day one, you're going to chair a committee. And the process currently works like the president's office will send out, give me your top 8 or 10 preferences for committee. And then it's up to you to go find the president or their chief of staff and say, here's my preference. This is number one, but it's really my number one. I would love to be considered to chair this particular committee. And the president usually tries to make sure that it's an area you have some expertise in. I mean, I would look foolish chairing healthcare appropriations because I don't know anything about that arena. Mm-hmm. So between the 40 of us, there's enough people with some expertise in a broad spectrum of areas of interest that it works out pretty good.
Fantastic. We're going to go to the next subject and talk about all your awards. Okay. In 2021, when I was president of the Suncoast League of Cities, you received the Home Rule Hero Award for all the municipalities in Pinellas counties. Tell us about that.
Well, I tell a lot of people this story that not enough people that serve in Tallahassee come from local government. It's a process. You're the closest to the people. You have to see them in the grocery store every day, at the restaurant you choose to go to. You are with your constituents every day, 7 days a week. I'm 240 miles up the road. What do I know about what's best for the city of Oldsmar? So as someone who came from local government, my working career in local government, my first elected position in local government, I just happen to believe local government in any way possible should be left alone. I lose a lot of those fights, unfortunately, but I'm not going to quit fighting. So that award came from the communities in the area where we live, and that was really, that makes it special when your people take time to recognize you for at least fighting the good fight. You may not win, but you fought the good fight. So it's proudly displayed.
It was evident that you were working hard for the
Yep.
local cities, and thank you for that. And I was humbled and honored to give you that award as president. So then next year, what the big one, the boxing belt? Why don't you talk about that?
Well, I have the only one in existence that if you've ever watched wrestling, WWE or whatever, whoever the champion is gets this ginormous belt that weighs about 10 pounds. And because of some efforts that we fought hard on to make sure local government was not harmed, the Florida League of Cities, which is there's 400 plus cities in the state of Florida. They have a great group called the Florida League of Cities that advocates on local government's behalf. I was a recipient of this championship belt that also is proudly displayed in my Tallahassee office. And people come in, and that's the first thing they see, and they're like, "Where'd you get this?" Well, from the Florida League of Cities.
Yeah, that was a very special evening, and you were up on stage.
Yep.
I could tell you were very proud to hold that thing up.
That's it's nice when you know you have the only one in existence.
All right, so we're getting ready to start legislative session. What are you going to work on? What kind of bills you're thinking about? Can you give us any input or secrets on that?
It's early, but we've started the process. We filed a few bills. It's that opportunity's just opened up. Couple of things that I know we're going to work on is obviously transportation related. That's kind of where I can have more input. If you drive an electric vehicle today, you don't contribute one penny to the maintenance or upkeep of our roads because they're all funded by gas tax. I don't drive one. I have had a hybrid. So we're going to try to make it a fair issue and Florida is the second largest state in the country behind California with registered electric vehicles. And that is growing every day. Every commercial you see from an auto manufacturer, they're not talking about miles per gallon. They're talking about range of one charge. So if that's how we fund keeping our roads maintained and putting down new roads, then that component of the transportation industry ought to be a fair participant. So we passed it in the Senate last year, and the House just didn't have the appetite to get it across the finish line. I think we will this year. The governor's expressed an interest in making sure that portion of transportation pays their share. So that'll be one of the things we work hard on. Another one is I call it the transportation train bill. It's the area of transportation that covers everything from where we locate our charging stations. You may or may not know that the federal government prohibits a electric vehicle charging station on the interstate highway system and rest areas. You can't put them there. So we try to make sure that we can site those charging stations within 1 mile of the exit on the interstate highway system. So you're least disrupted if you're traveling, you need a charge, get off the exit within a mile, you find one, get back on the road and go on your way. So we spend a lot of money doing that. Mm-hmm. We do have them on the turnpike system because that's our system. So that'll be another bill. In this state, we seem to have a problem, Mayor, with, I call them rogue moving companies and moving brokers. You can call a moving company and they'll give you a quote over the phone. Somebody will show up to load up all your furniture and belongings. And when you get to where they're supposed to go, they say, "Hey, we didn't agree to this deal. If you don't pay us $5,000, we're not offloading your furniture." And if they damage your furniture, they have to pay you 60 cents a pound, whether it's a priceless antique or a piece of just ordinary furniture. So it's pretty rampant in Southeast Florida. I know you're shocked that things would be amuck in Southeast Florida, but there's a big problem with us, ordinary people who are trying to move, being extorted by moving companies that the old bait and switch is alive and well. So we're going to rein that industry in and make sure that if it needs to be in bold letters on the contract, it is. It's going to say that you can't charge more than what you agreed to up front. And if you want to buy insurance to insure beyond 60 cents a pound, that has to be offered to you up front. So that's the first 3 bills we have filed. Plus, obviously, with my appropriations chairmanship, we'll be doing a lot of appropriation interaction with the rest of that staff to make sure that the money we are allocated during the budget process, that we spend as wisely as we can.
Thank you for sharing all that. I really appreciate it. 2 things. The moving thing, I've heard some horror stories. I didn't realize it was that bad, so thank you for sharing that.
It's bad.
And working on that. I didn't realize that. And then the second thing, the electrical tax for the vehicles, the PSTA, they're getting rid of all of their diesel buses. We've got 70, 80 buses coming in. Their Duke Energy right now is redoing the whole infrastructure to go away from diesel and on putting in electric charging stations. So yeah, that's something that has to be taken care of. It really does.
The projection is by 2035 that 30% of all the vehicles in Florida will be electric vehicles.
Interesting.
The technology there today that we're going to have electric tractor trailers. Even the automobile, a Tesla being a smaller car weighs more than a mid-sized passenger car because of all the battery weight. So imagine what a tractor trailer is going to have in weight to pound our roads and cause them to be requiring maintenance sooner rather than later. So if we have to keep them up, then everybody should pay a fair share.
I can't even imagine how many batteries would be inside that truck, right? I mean, the whole bottom of it would have to be full to keep that thing running and pulling all that weight. Interesting.
Tampa Airport is now doing a 20-year upgrade to their planning stages, and they're planning already for electronic airplanes.
Interesting. Well, thanks. Yeah, so we're changing, and we're in the heart of it. So
we're right in the middle of it.
Well, do you have anything else you'd like to share before we end this? I really do appreciate your time. Anything else?
No, Mayor, I've had a great relationship for quite a few years, and I have a fair amount of cities in my district, both counties, and I try to make a point to make sure I visit all the cities. Tell me what your priorities really are, and as this cycle ends and election occurs next year, if I'm fortunate enough to be able to be reelected, I'm going to have a pretty good position in the next chapter of the Florida Senate, and I think I'll be in a position to be more helpful to not only our communities but our constituents at large, and to make sure that my part of Florida is treated as equally as any other part of Florida. Not every part of Florida gets treated equally.
Well, the city of Oldsmar and myself, I support you 100%, and I will be there to back you and help you make sure that you get reelected because you are a treasure for the city of Oldsmar. Thank you, Senator.
I love Oldsmar.
Yeah,
thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for being my guest today. This has been great. I sent you a text and you were like, I'll give you a couple dates, and it worked out for today. So I'm blessed that you're here. If you want to see more of these podcasts, you can see them at oldsmar.com or experienceoldsmar.com. I'm your host, Mayor Dan Saracki. Until next time, I invite you to do anything you want in Oldsmar. There's the Ari Olds Park, there's Veterans Park, there's so much to do. And again, thank you, Senator Hooper, for being here. We are blessed to have you as our senator. Thank you for joining us. Until next time, go out and have fun in the city of Oldsmar. Thank you.